what do you all see as you sort of taken this and digested it?
I'm Gina, by the way.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not Mark.
Oh, okay.
I'm not even close to Mark.
I don't know.
I'm close to Mark, but I'm not like
yet.
Mark. No, I'm
Thad.
I'm Thad.
This is Thad.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you.
Thad's on the board, he's a local
Thad's
attorney.
outside.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I met Thad one time.
Well, I just had not
Yeah,
crossed
so
paths
are you with,
I'm
Ashley
Gina.
Roundtree, yeah,
Yeah.
she is my, we were partnered on this one.
okay, good.
Along with another,
apologize for that.
Yeah,
one
no.
with Heather Allen, who is another one of our consultants that work closely with us.
Who wants to say, you wanna start?
Well, I gotta, when I read it, I gotta say I wasn't really surprised. I was a little disappointed, but when we had the meeting 6 months ago, you said, listen, we don't know how this is gonna end up, but oftentimes it might not be what you think you might wanna hear, but it'll be honest. And that's what you need to hear. And so that's kinda how I took it. I remembered that meeting and your conversation in my
Yeah.
head as I read this.
Yeah.
That was my takeaway from it. It's intimidating.
Yeah.
But
I get it.
but you told us it would be.
And it's not an uncommon finding for people not to be ready where they think they are. Like, I can tell you, like, I started a report yesterday for a significant group in town that you would think would be able to blow through a major campaign, and the reality is that they got issues. It's not gonna be what they want. And that's just, it's hard as a consultant to be able to kind of realize that. And then for me to go and have to write it up and then go in and tell them that, I mean, you don't feel sorry for me, but I'm just saying that it's.
We don't.
We don't.
Yeah, I do.
No, we don't.
But I mean,
I
it's so
don't
it's
feel
not an uncommon thing. I think from what I see, from what we've seen from you guys, they're just, you all in terms of the arc of your existence are just in a very early stage, okay? And it was evident from when we had our conversations with donor prospects. There just has not been, the biggest thing is there just has not been time and attention paid to cultivating and stewarding and really sharing the story over longer periods of time, right? To make it more than a transactional sort of, hey, here's what we're doing, what do you think about the place, and look great, and then boom. It's just not gonna work for these folks. And so anyway, why don't we,
Well, and I also have to say too, you're also in this like infancy stage of where you're going. So it's not that things are broken or not right or there's issues uncovered. They're just not there. I mean, you have this opportunity to build the way that you're doing this the right way. So it's just taking the patience of building it to get to where you want to be. So that's why it's not going to happen. You just have to build in some of the stewardship processes and things that, that take cultivation and time to get those larger gifts. So with time and dedication, it will happen.
I guess the problem is, as we look around at the executive people here, if we look at the people on the board, we're not fundraising people. We're just not. But when Mark asked me to be on the board, I said, I'm not the guy who can call up, half a dozen people and say,
No.
I need $100,000. I'm not that person. And so, but none of us are. So that's our big, obviously I think, I guess, impediment to.
Well, and that was noted in here,
Yeah.
and there is recommendation to
that's
correct
what-
that, because most people aren't just fundraising people, and
Yeah.
nobody is.
right, like that's
Yeah.
highly
I don't-
usual.
Yeah, it's quite, but when you read all this, you're just like, oh.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we struggle with
Yeah.
that. This actually was,
we went back and forth about that.
yeah, we went really back and forth about the report. But I think I sort of won out. I know I won out a little
He
bit.
won.
Because I put
Like
more
70
information
pages,
in there than less. Because I want you to have a playbook and a roadmap to be able to say, to refer to and go back and say, okay, where are we now? Let's go back and see what the playbook said to do, and then let's figure out where we go. Because I think it's better I'd rather you have more than less and be a little overwhelmed at the beginning than to be get some stuff done and then be like, okay, now what's next?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
And when you bring and I say when, I hope, like, however that works, okay, and we can talk about that, but somebody in to kind of carve out like this, you know, focus on fundraising, then they'll understand much more of this, and they're gonna have this and build off of it. Your executive summary is in there for the purpose of, this is a lot, here's your bullet points, and they're in order, by theme, and, you know, don't forget, you've got about 20 pages of appendices that like I added in of like, here's a template for that. Like, I created your board expectations. You can completely change those. I just kind of gave you a sample, but, and I can send you a word of anything that you want. But the concept was like, just to, so you don't feel like, how do I create board, expectations? Like, at least here's something to start with. Whether you agree with my thoughts or not, you can now know how to edit them and to establish that. And that's just an example. There's like a board matrix in there, like for you to, then I can email you that. So there was 20 pages of just, here's the forms that we're gonna send you.
So,
Just gonna say hey.
Hey, Mark.
Alright, good to see you
let's see,
again.
you're a
Yeah.
brave man to wear that shirt,
Oh no.
cause I won't,
I'm
Until-
hoping it's gonna be good.
until April, late April. Somebody new in here.
I would get you a Bellerman shirt, but that doesn't really help right now.
No. It's just tough right now.
Tough.
Good to meet you.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
I'm Gina.
Oh,
So
nice to
nice
meet you.
to meet
Oh,
you.
absolutely,
Did
thank
yours
you.
do that, or
Yes,
is
we
it
talked,
long?
right?
It was long.
Yes, we did.
Awesome.
Alright.
All right. So let me take you through some things just to kind of get, as sort of point you out about some, just as we see it and we want to communicate to you what we're seeing here, okay? And hey, Sam, if you want to start, I'm gonna refer to some things on page 13. You don't have to.
You've got one.
But so as we think about this $1 million goal, you think, okay, what's the deal with the $1 million goal, right? I think for us, the reality is that we didn't find in our interviews people that were willing to commit at this time 6-figure gifts to the cause. It's just a matter of we didn't talk to them, or when we did talk to them, they were a little hesitant to say, okay, I could be all in on that, okay? And that's just a matter of continued education, cultivation, and keep pulling them in. And so a lot of that came down to sort of the 3 bullet points you see on 13 and 14, which are they have connections with you all, but they're not deep. Yeah, that says more shallow than not. And so those folks are gonna need more time and attention and just care to be able to get them to activate at the levels that they feel that they can do for, you know, 6-figure, maybe a 7-figure gift. And that is kind of the root cause of, that is, if there's one thing in the report from my point of view, it's that it's this greater relationship building with people that are learning about you and caring about you. And that's not something that can just like happen to snap. You know, I think that in addition to that, and the fact that there weren't 6-figure gifts available on the table, there were general concerns about, whoa, because the people that do kind of know what's going on, they're like, you all you're jumping in here with both feet, which is all good and well, right? But at the same time, I think they ask a question, okay, so how are they gonna manage this? How is this how are they gonna afford to do this? How is it? And those are questions, I think they're pretty legitimate, and they're, you know, we kind of talked about those at the beginning, like, hey, we're just kind of building the plane as we're flying it here, you know? And I guess we should have anticipated that, but what are your thoughts in terms of that? Because I know we had discussions about that, sort of, well, are these numbers correct for the, you know, renovation of the facilities? Is, you know, there was sort of like, I'm not sure, you know, there were some key interviews we had where people were kind of
Well,
pushed back a little harder than
And
not.
I can say, I was told to repeat this, because, you know, they are confidential interviews, so we won't generally say this person said this, but you do have an individual on your board that is in building, and I cannot think of his name right now, construction. Yes, no, somebody else, or maybe it was Luke.
He's the only one.
He's the only builder.
Okay, then
He
it was
owns a
Luke.
construction
Then
company.
it was Luke.
Yeah.
He thought the numbers were like a fraction of what they were. He even gave me the right square foot per number, and it was like the one building that, and I wrote this down, and of course I don't have, I mean, if you want me to go back and like, I think you should just call him really and
Sure.
work it out with him.
Yeah.
But he, like, to where like one of them was at 100,000, and basically with his figure, it was a $600,000 building. I mean, so he was
Based
like,
on the
this
square
is,
footage.
yeah, so he was like, this is really wrong, not even like a little wrong.
Yeah.
Because he was explaining to me about the fact that they're like the sewer, you know, like all the things that you need, it's just not there, so it just costs more. So that was one of the things of like, I think they're in too deep, because of how much it is per building, which doesn't mean, it might just mean I think you need to work with him and develop a plan, and he offered to do that, like, put me in, like, we'll do, you know, his thought was maybe one building and like recover from it financially, and then maybe the next, and really identify which one is most important versus like doing all the things, but keeping that as a master plan of like where you wanna go, but making that more of like a 10-year kind of master plan versus like, which is great, I mean, you have to have a vision, so I definitely would follow up with him on that.
You already have.
Great. Yeah, cause I was like, I think cause I did say, I was like, I
Is he
don't
the
know.
bridge guy too?
He's the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's already been out there several times.
All right.
He's leading the charge on
Good,
Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, you should call them and tell them, because he was like, I haven't quite told him that yet, and I'm like,
You gotta tell us.
call
Yeah.
them, they will
And
say,
yeah.
please,
Yeah.
yeah, please come, so, good.
Yeah, none of us have that expertise.
Yeah,
No.
You know,
yeah, it's
that's
back
what
to
he
that,
does.
yeah, I get
That's
it.
right,
I
that's
get
why we
it.
have him on the board, and so he was like, I'm excited to do this, cause it's something I can do.
Sure.
Mhm.
it. He's been incredibly helpful.
Good.
So I think
And
that will be a gift going forward.
And so I think that, you know, so take a step out. Okay, okay, you're not quite ready for this. Okay, then what do we do first, Kyle? Like, how do we, what do we need to think about? And this is sort of like the key map here. Like, this is sort of looks at the areas.
What page?
This diagram,
Yeah, it's on page 12. Okay, it just kind of summarizes it's sort of like a summary of gap analysis on some things that just need to be buttoned up within the organization, okay? And I will tell you, these are things that we regularly see with organizations that are at your age, okay? New organizations are just trying to get it done, figure it out, do it. And so as you mature, you know, quote, mature as an organization, and then you start engaging with people, like there's gonna be expectations that, you know, I don't know how you know, you get a teenager and, you know, they start opening the door for their mom when you go to a restaurant and stuff like, you know, so they start maturing and doing different things, and that'll be something that we'll see with you. So, and they're kind of broken into what we call the 4 quadrants, which means that there are things here that all of this affects fund development in some way. Okay, because everything funnels into it, it's gonna hurt it or help it one way or the other. So you'd rather have it help it than do anything else. And so you'll see most of the stuff on here is not fundraising. You know, if you look at it, it's like there's a lot of things around the board needs to kind of button up and get done that are there. There are communications things that can happen, and there's some measurements with program and services that could be really helpful to you over time. And then there's the fundraising part, which is down here, which is really the central part of the study and the most important, but we want to highlight that there are other things that can help sort of get things settled to where that can really take off.
do you wanna go through those bullets, I mean, would that be helpful, or, I mean, did you guys get a chance to, I'm sure you
Well,
reviewed it and
Yeah,
digested.
one of the things I think back
Okay.
here, I think we got them, don't we? I think it's
Yeah,
just
I
kind
think
of.
so.
So, it's this lack of deep connection on page 15, the underlined section. It's, there's nobody that, it's just activation of capacity. And it goes back to that chart I think I showed you at one point where it's capacity versus affinity, right? And so you all have people that have capacity, and you need to get more people that have more capacity. But you need to pull that affinity line over here. And the good news is it's easier to make people know about you than it is easier to find rich people or make poor people rich, right? That is not happening, okay?
That'd be a trick.
And so,
We can do it all, we can do that.
so more of that has to happen. That's page 16. More of that has to happen to drag over or to drag up some of those people that are on the lower quadrant, the little dots, where they have giving capacity up into that sweet spot to where they're activated to say, okay, I'm ready. I'm willing to put $100,000 into this because I believe and I'm confident in what they're doing, and so I want to make that play. So how how do you kind of build that out and get to that point? Okay, there's some real basic stuff that I think are on page 17 that you talk about that we want to see you guys do at the beginning, okay, to really set yourself up right. And the first is your donor management system. You got to get that to where it can work for you, not against you, or you don't have to work for it, all right? You want to talk a little bit about that and the donor data?
You have a system, correct?
Yeah, we have,
But you're just not, it's not fully being.
it's not being, it's only,
Right.
we only capture online donations.
Okay, I was
Right.
about to say, cause I remember talking, cause I
There
remember
are
being like.
multiple systems.
That's right, there's
Yeah,
multiple,
yeah.
that's what it is,
And-
okay. So, there are some really affordable, like, online platforms. Little Green Light is one that we've recommended, to many people. I mean, I forgot the price point, but it's
Like less than $1,000 a
Yeah.
year.
annually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like, it's not, like, it doesn't have to mean, there's Razor's Edge,
Mhm.
you don't need to have that.
No, okay,
It's very expensive, it's way too much.
okay.
Why buy the Porsche?
Right.
You don't need it, like, you're not going on the expressway, like, you just
Mm-hmm.
need something basic and something to pull up. It'll take some time to pull donor records in,
Yeah,
but not that much.
Okay.
And once you have it in there, they're in there. But also, most importantly, from a stewardship perspective, you can flag things. So one of the things that I did note in interviews was there wasn't consistency on stewardship in terms of like, coming to somebody at a set time of year or knowing their calendar of giving and making sure that you're utilizing that calendar to the best of how you can access money. So that was something that was noted multiple times. So I think if you utilize, it'll give you pings, it'll help you remember when, so-and-so, could follow up October 1, their grant cycle starts November,
right.
decision by January.
So it's
You-
individuals, foundations,
Yes.
corporations,
Everybody's
everybody in
individual.
one place.
Everybody in one place. So it will blow your mind with how, and that will help you raise money. So
Yeah.
that 1,000 will be a drop in the bucket when you utilize it correctly.
Right.
So
And
it's very
And then
important.
capturing every single
Everything.
person that you have a touch point with.
Yeah, let me ask this question, if you don't mind, just to clarify. Right now, our system, we primarily use it to we capture donor information, but that's like a secondary, it's a secondary step.
It's staying in
It's-
like a spreadsheet or
yes,
something, right?
yes.
Right.
Primarily, we use the platform to capture griever information. So
Right.
people that are coming to access services and programs, we capture their information in this one system that we use, which it probably
So
has.
Griever and online donation.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
In the same
So,
system?
yes,
Yeah.
it's in the same system. So are you saying we would maybe, depending on the functionality of this little green light, be able to eliminate that and
Yeah.
combine them into
I
one?
think you have to have them all into one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I also, and this is noted in the
Yeah, it's
report.
the next report
Okay.
item down here.
I'm
You're
sorry, I
gonna
missed
need it.
that.
You're gonna
No.
you wanna bring them all together into one database,
Right.
right? And you wanna code them out,
Right,
okay? Donor,
Right.
griever.
right.
And as we see here, this is not like, it may seem awkward for you at first to think about your grievers as donors at some point, but that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it happens for people that get their retina sewed back on, right?
Grateful patient.
And yeah,
yeah.
it's they're like, dude, I'm so like, thank you. Like I had my hand put back together.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're not gonna come out with an ask, that's why you code them,
Mhm.
but you're gonna cultivate them just so where an ask at some point in time can be appropriate.
Right.
And they become someone that uses your services, an advocate for you, cares about you, and dang on,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get back.
How can I get by?
Right.
So then, and that's number 4 is like shifting, like how you're viewing grievers as potential donors. It's
Yeah.
like creating a completely different mind shift with that. And what you could do is, I don't know what the right cadence is, okay? And so you guys will be the experts in that. But say you meet somebody and maybe you determine the right cadence is 4 months post or 3 months post or whatever the case
Initial
may be.
meeting, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I just don't know. We talked about this kind of at length because my mom was in hospice and they had a cadence and I thought it was quite right. I think they reached out to me about 4 weeks after she passed.
Mhm.
Maybe it was 6.
Okay.
But it was just enough time where I wasn't insulted by it, but it
Right.
was also the right time of like, I was so grateful for what they did for our family that
Right.
it was okay for me. I felt very much like I'm in a place now. So I don't know what that right cadence is for you guys,
Okay.
but determine one and you might, shift it a
Tweak
little bit.
bit.
Yeah, and then like with this system, you can pull a report March 1 and say, who are the grievers from 3 months ago that we just met? So you can look and then you can do a follow-up and you can send them a letter, you can send them a postcard, a phone call.
And it's soft touch at
Like a
that
phone
point.
call,
Yeah.
very
Right.
soft.
It's
Very
not,
soft.
Yeah.
hey, hope you
Donate
enjoy
time.
the
The hard
services.
sale. Yeah.
It's saying, checking you out, you make sure you're good,
Right.
if you need
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
if you, if you
Which just
care
helps
to-
relationships in general, which
Absolutely.
ultimately,
Well, it's aftercare too.
Right.
It is
Absolutely.
aftercare. It's right in line with. Community is a thing. It's something that we value, and so
Yes.
relationship building should be a
Yes.
natural,
yes.
thing that we do.
You could mark anniversaries for people,
Yeah,
like
that's
in
what-
that.
Well,
that we've
our
been wanting
system
to
is
figure
not
out.
very
We
good
do
at
that.
that.
To do
at
So
that.
you can pull a report at the beginning of the month and like, you can code, like it'll give you access to code all these things
Mhm.
and then
Okay.
you'll be able to pull that and kind of see what you need to do with whoever needs a touch in the month of March.
Yeah.
And then you can lay it out, you can pull it weekly, it's got a lot of functionality.
You may address this, so I might be getting ahead of you
That's
here,
okay.
but if, we choose this little green light system and we're uploading and pulling all of our information into it, information from day 0 all the way into it, or,
I would.
yeah, I mean, that
Can't
makes
hurt.
sense to me, just,
It'll take time, but then you have it. Because if you have something from 5 years ago and somebody comes back to you and you can
Yeah.
pull that,
I
like,
can see it.
wow, 5 years ago they gave us $1,000 donation for X, and I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna wanna know that.
Yeah,
yeah.
So yeah,
That's the point.
I would.
Yeah.
so just take the time, put your head down, get it done.
Yeah.
You know,
We can divide the elephant up.
yeah.
And the real big thing coming out of all this is to be ready for the real work that is the core of the recommendations moving forward, which is to begin a targeted and defined donor engagement program. All right, it's all leading to that. And what that section of the report is all about is that's really building out small donors, and as you can see here, we talk about, okay, who is gonna be a major donor for an organization? It's all dependent upon every organization. For you, we would consider a major donor a person that gives you $1,000 or more now. Some organizations it's 5, some it's 10, some it's 50, whatever. It's 1,000. So we have you looking at foundation representatives, board members, annual donors, and corporate sponsorship folks as being targets within your system to say, can I move these people into a major gift strategy? And that's on page 19. Okay, that is the kind of core group of people that you should look at within your database and look at from a capacity standpoint to then help you begin to identify, cultivate, steward, and then solicit for a gift over time. And I think that what's really gonna be happening is that you're gonna have to play a role in getting to know these people. No offense to the development director or whatever, but major donors need TLC from the top person. It's just a reality, okay?
I think, and we need guidance in that because that's been tricky, because a lot of the people that have come by way of Mark, so
Right.
they've been referred from therapy,
Yes.
and I know that, so I can't ask their story,
Right,
so I kinda have to let it unfold when
Right.
they're ready. So that's been a tricky pattern to get into, because I can't dig deep until, if I know that they've come from therapy and they said, Mark's referred me, I can do a little, but I can't
Right.
dig until they release that information. So I've been
you-
hesitant to know how to handle that.
Okay, well, I think we should talk about that because that came up a lot too.
That's tricky for me to know what's
Yeah.
appropriate and what isn't, so I would love guidance on just,
I think you treat it like, I would
Do
treat
you
it like,
have to know this one?
yeah.
I mean, like, couldn't you just meet them for coffee
Well-
and what about just like
sure.
just want to get to know you and whether the story comes out. I mean, just in terms of like, this is what we offer and this is what we have
Right.
and here's our programs and this is how you reach me. I mean, just,
And that's
It's
kind
like
of been awkward a few times when they've come to the sanctuary for a tour.
Yeah.
And Mark just says they're coming, and I
That's
can't
fine,
ask, why?
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
Yeah.
So when they come, a couple have said, are you here to show me around, or you wanna ask me money, or what do you want? And I don't know, because I just know they're supposed to be.
We
there.
don't,
So
we don't know the
I-
context of the conversation that got
They
them in the
Right,
know
door.
them there,
We
so-
don't
I
have
would just say
context
you're
for that.
sharing the
So
space,
that's-
you're sharing this place with them. You're offering it as a place that they are,
A
people that they
resource.
know, a resource could come and thing, and that's it.
Okay.
And then you have to build that relationship.
Yeah, you're
You
not-
would never ask, I mean, take the money off the table for now. You're just stewarding
Right.
and cultivating. You get that.
Relationship.
It's sort of like,
Relationship in the community.
Yeah.
right. It's just sort of like during an interview.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there's certain things you're not supposed to ask, like how many kids do you have? What church do you go to? You know, those are like big no-nos in the interview process. So you
Right.
just got to remember, I'm not going to dive into it. But if they say, oh, you know, my kids have got a this, that, or the other, then they've opened the door. Then you can explore that.
Right.
So just kind of that's the way I look at it. It's kind of easy like that.
But I think that's why I hesitate to dive deep, because there are sometimes I don't even know what I can ask. And so I guess basically we just want them to know that we're a resource, show
Yes.
them around, how can we serve you,
Yes.
and just let it unfold the
Yes.
way it should.
Organically.
And then,
Yes.
then you gotta know that you did that. Then you gotta follow up with them.
Put it in your
At some point.
database.
Right,
Check.
right, right,
Put them in your
right.
database and like figure out what that cadence is for follow-up. Maybe it's 4 weeks,
Right.
maybe it's
Sure.
8 weeks. Then you follow up, you know, do you have any questions from the tour and how
Yeah.
can we service? Have you been to any of the sessions? How
Sure.
did you feel? You know, like,
Right.
we'd love to
Okay.
have you back. I mean, just making sure that they understand. Because also, you know, there's the calendar on the website, but I don't think it's super clear how to access the services. So I think too, making sure that they know like what you guys have available to them
Yeah.
on a routine basis is
Like
even helpful,
regular
right?
programming.
Yeah, so just making sure that you're speaking on behalf of Camberwells, what that you can offer them versus when they're ready to dive deep with you, they will, maybe they never will. And ultimately, as long as you're building a connection there, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, as long as they know where to go and how to be served and you know how to reach out to them.
And this would be the same approach, griever versus just straight up donor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, nuanced and softened up would
Of
be
course,
different
yeah.
for each different
Yeah.
person's deal.
But I
But
do
the framework
think
is the same.
yeah, and I do think there is truly value of a follow-up post tour.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I did hear, you know, Kate went for a tour and then haven't talked to anybody. I mean, I
Yeah.
did hear that. So I mean, I do think people, if they're gonna invest, think about it, if they're gonna invest the time and energy to come for a tour, they're interested.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes people just don't know how to ask for what they just don't know. So I mean, I think following up is really
And
helpful,
that gives them time to
Yeah.
think on it and
which is all the
figure it
stewardship
out
process of
and-
relationship, not
Yeah.
necessarily money.
Yeah. Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
and I think taking a deep breath and knowing, I mean, the biggest thing that helped, well, look, I know you're all scheduled in terms of the timing of the note that comes due on the property. So there's pressure around that. I get that. And I think that I think the plan here will allow you to get that, to be able to tackle some of that. But we'll talk about that in a little bit, because we have another kind of thought that we want to share that we think you ought to explore at least with some partners. But anyway, so that is the big focus, and just need to keep thinking about how do I continue to build out this, broaden and deepen the relationships. That's it, broaden and deepen. And so there's some additional tactics, but those come in years 2 and 3, okay, of the plan, and that is where you really start taking this to a new level, where you de-emphasize events, because events take a huge amount of time. You're a very small staff, unless it's completely donor driven, which I doubt it is. But I think you need to focus on getting people in there. And one of the things that I think we talked about and I've looked at all the time is that you have a lot of people that interact with you in your Facebook page. And I think I would really take a look at how you can begin to use that as
Yeah.
low hanging fruit.
I've been really inconsistent with
Yeah.
the social media posting in the last 6
Well,
months.
you can't do all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
that's me. So.
But I think
Yeah.
that, I think
You
you
have to
need to
see.
think about, I think you need to think of that as your
Yeah.
second database.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
right, yeah.
That's a good
That's a
perspective.
good
Now I
way
think
to look at it.
I think you have a very large
We have a
number.
big following
Yeah.
on Facebook,
And
because
so
usually,
So those are people that are on this chart. They have an affinity towards
right,
what you're
they're
doing.
interested in what
All
we're
right.
doing, yeah.
So that's where you
Yeah.
get. Okay, that's how you kind of start it. So it's like a feeder system. in a
Yeah.
way.
We do have a calendar. There is a social media calendar and plan in place. Again, it's just I've failed to stick to it the last
Well,
6 months.
if there's
so.
consideration of maybe bringing something on a part-time basis for fundraising,
Yeah.
maybe that's something that,
Yeah.
they could do, or, I mean, like,
Yeah,
there's only 2 of you,
Yeah.
so,
yeah.
But I think,
Everything's
there's only so
fine.
much you can do.
Everything's fine.
It's okay, we've got this.
But I
And
think-
you do, but what if
Yeah.
somebody else could
But you all need to be really focused on, I mean, building the program out is important, but I think none of that's gonna mean anything if we can't raise the money.
Right.
Okay, so you all got to be locked in on living, breathing, eating, fundraising in terms of your thought process during your day.
I love that you're saying that because, as Kelly and I have talked through this report multiple times, I just keep coming around this idea like, okay, there has to be this healthy tension, I guess, between we have to proceed, right, with what we're already doing. We have programs, we have events, we have things on the calendar that are coming up. But then also there needs to be a significant push of energy in this direction. And so I just, that's where I get, how you do both.
Well, I think one of the things is that these things are numbered, and I think
Okay.
some of the most important things and
Yeah.
like immediate things are first.
Okay.
So, I mean, I really would like look at
Yeah.
that of like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, database.
Literally like
Let's
a
get number one
checklist.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
Okay.
okay, let's get that done.
Okay.
Let's research it, let's find a platform, let's
Yeah.
purchase it,
Yeah.
and let's figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
Like, number one, check. We do have consultants on staff that will help with things like that as well. If that's something like there is only two of you, I mean, because Judith and her team will help with any database, right?
Yeah, I mean, they just helped University of Pikeville get a new database, and they didn't even charge them for it. They just kind of, I mean, maybe it's like $75 an hour that they charge them to kind of consult with them, and then we wouldn't even need that.
So we have like a team of
Yeah.
database people, and I
Yeah.
just referred them to another client who had Razor's Edge, and it was just kind of, I mean, she took such little time and completely reworked.
She knows what
Their
she's
coding's
doing.
wrong,
Yeah.
they had notes,
Yeah.
like, they had notes and data fields, and she's like, notes and data fields are like where, information goes to die.
Yes, it's true.
It was
You
so
don't,
funny.
yeah, if you
But
don't
it's
filter that
true.
out on the report,
Because
you
you
never
can't,
see
you can't
it.
sort by a
You
note.
can't see it, yeah.
And she was like, you've got, she went and reworked
Yeah.
it a couple sessions, and I mean, the development director over there was like, holy,
This
Wow.
is how it's supposed to work.
this is amazing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't have that skill set personally, but I know somebody who does.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if that's
Yeah.
something that you guys want, I mean, we can set you up with that. It's worth the time and energy, or time and money investment,
Yeah.
to have somebody
Yeah.
help build that out.
I guess that's what, a little bit surprised me as I read that. There's a lot of words in here, but that's not in here.
What?
Yeah.
What you just said, that like little green light, like
It is.
have the name Little Green Lights in there?
Yeah, I actually did reference it.
Okay, I could not, I was,
Oh, I
You know,
couldn't find it either.
Oh, well then maybe I took it off, but it could be
but you know what,
anything.
but on these things, it's like, we're like, well, we know we need to get there, but how do we get there? And I mean, just some of the things you've said today has been very helpful.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah.
why we had this meeting,
Sure.
and we can
Sure, we didn't know, I
continue.
mean, again, when you get this, you're kinda like,
I understand, yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting there, I almost hit print. And I
And then
didn't have a lot of
didn't.
paper left, so,
Yeah.
but I read it on my screen, and I
Yeah.
just read it,
Yeah.
but it was,
I mean,
uh,
this is the tension between how do
That's
we,
what we
what
talked
do we
about.
do for you? This is what we talked about.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We talked about, should we give them a PowerPoint presentation? A PowerPoint that's very high level stuff, right? Or do we give them something that is gonna have a lot of stuff in it that you can refer to and sort of reference library, so that when we're not around, you can go back, or you can call us and say, David, what did you mean by this?
Yeah.
No, this is what we meant by
Every
it.
time.
You know what I mean? So it's,
but I guess to me, it's like right now, what we need is the services that you all do offer and can help us with.
Yeah.
Is recommend, I mean, I guess you all have to, it's a fine line that you have to walk, because you're like, well, you can use us or use somebody else, but you need somebody.
yeah.
But you're not trying to sell yourself, because if you're a consultant, but if these are things we didn't know that you offered, I guess that's one thing is
Yeah.
we need is, and then we can come back and say, all right, it's going to cost us $400. Just pick a number. I'm just
Right.
throwing it out, whatever it is, and we go to the board and we say, okay, here's what we got. We've got this. Instead of hiring somebody for a full-time person, we're going to use this for this as needed, and here's where we are.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's totally fair, and, I mean, I think, post, we can touch base again and we can talk, I mean, you let us know on where you want us to build some of that.
Well, we don't know what we don't know on some of it, not really, I mean, it's like, I knew there was a CRM, I mean, obviously, our world is, anybody that's in any kind of sales, retail has a CRM.
We use one.
So,
Yeah.
there's, in the same way with this little green light thing, I'm sure, I didn't know where to start, I mean, that was not something that.
Yeah, you feel like maybe it just wasn't quite specific enough, like.
Yeah, but I'm
so-
hearing it here.
You're hearing
So,
it
and
here,
I'm,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
refreshing to
Yeah.
me, because I was just like,
Yeah.
so.
Well, and just know that like, as much as you wanna reach out to us and help still devise your plan and develop it, like, we're here. We're not, this is not the end of the relationship.
It's generally how, hear me out here, okay? We will put, if clients want some additional, sort of like, hey, we need maybe a little help over the next year. We do a very simple one pager, hourly as needed, right? You call me, we talk for 5 minutes, that costs you $10, right? You call and so it's something that we can, we're not gonna leave here and just leave you hanging with this, right? I mean, we're prudent and thoughtful, and we have different kind of clients and have different kind of scenarios, so, yeah, it's.
So
Well, I
it is
think
hourly
people-
as needed, not retainer based, like the.
No,
campaign
so if you never
said.
call us, there's nothing.
Sorry, Sam.
Well, the people power is what we're lacking, because there's two
Yeah.
people on staff, and
Yeah.
that have, and again, this is not a negative reflection on anything, but have learned as they've gone. And so that's where we need a consultant to be
Right.
able to, we hired the one guy that was a flop, and, we thought he said all the right words at first, but we didn't know the words we were supposed to be hearing, I guess. But,
Yeah.
it sounded
You don't know what
good.
you don't know.
Right.
I think, and I think if I just don't know what comfort you would have, but in my head, I think that you need a part-time person for development.
At some
I think you need
point,
to
right.
invest in that to be able to raise what you need to raise, I think that that's an investment, and I think if you did that, and then you kept Ashley Roundtree on as needed, or counsel, or whatever that looked like,
Yeah.
I'm helping with a client right now that, they're launching their campaign, but it's taken them 8 months to get there, and I've just 5 hours a week, a couple hours a week, I've been their person, I've helped them, almost as like their accountability.
Like, they don't wanna get
Checking in.
started.
Yeah,
But it's been like, you need to get this filled out,
yeah.
this spreadsheet needs to happen, you need to get this information, you need
Yeah.
to get your.
There's also
Yeah.
things where we have temporary staffing.
Mm.
So if you need someone for a day a week to do something, like we can have a contractor come in and do some work, be a kind of the development director for 4 hours a week or 5 hours, whatever it is, if you need something like that. But we can just talk. I think today I just want to kind of level set about where you are and know that you can, you just call us and we talk anytime. It's not gonna be like on the clock, you know what I mean? It's just, I have clients that call me all the time. So we have a relationship. It's more than just this report. We'll figure it out as it kind of happens.
I really do.
We're not like attorneys, so
Yeah.
we're like,
I
well,
like
we
that.
sort of are, but not really. I'm looking at my boss in my ear
You're like,
like,
yes,
shut
you
up,
actually are an attorney.
Shut up, Carl.
Wait.
I am an attorney, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
I'm just down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we got 2 of them
He
already.
isn't,
I think I really do. I'm excited to continue, obviously, this conversation, but I think you can say if I'm wrong, but really, like, just big takeaway right now, just sitting here, like light bulb moment, that this fundraising piece, these quadrants and this fundraising piece, like, we really have kind of had to roll it all into one thing. Like, everything is just all
Yes.
in the same pot, but it has to be its own.
Because I even,
Division.
and that's one of the main things I noted on that quadrant is clear roles and responsibilities
Yeah.
within the staff. Because,
Yeah.
you guys are gonna be
It-
the first ones to be like, it's not super clear, we're just
Yeah.
kinda like jumping in.
Yeah.
And that's confusing
Yeah.
for you and for board and for
Yeah.
everybody, so I think even,
Having a
you could
defined
add-
role that is
right.
just,
So even if it stays the two of you,
yeah, right,
really being like, you own this,
Yeah.
you own this.
yes, yeah.
And I-
That's really important.
It is.
Yeah.
I think that's where I kept swimming. I kept going back to that because, and the teacher and me wrote all kinds of notes just because I have to keep it clear. But, again, we were learning as we go. And
Yeah.
a lot of the board was learning as we go.
Mhm.
And so no one really truly knew, that's what, you guys need to take that on, and we're gonna take this on, but I
Yes.
can't carry all of this, and you
No.
carry 0. So it's helpful, but I still think we need a great deal of clarity
Specifics.
on
Yeah.
what what truly do Valerie and I hand to the board and say, listen, we've got to depend on you for this, and then what in turn do they say, listen, we gotta count on you for this? Like, our roles have just not we haven't had the time.
There's a lot of
to define
confusion.
I
it.
think,
A lot of
you know,
confusion.
in my opinion, I think if you depend, and you all correct me, and I've just seen this from being on boards, is if you depend on the board to do work, you're gonna end up being disappointed a lot of times.
Yeah, that's very true.
They have other work.
So-
Right, that is, yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, to me, it's set the strategy, set this, you know, and let the staff do that, but you've gotta be able to, you know, what comes first, the chicken and the egg? You don't have enough
Right.
money to pay, you know, another person, and so.
Exactly.
I
And-
kind
and
of
so-
like a balance. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I like the board relationship where there's committees, and I laid all this out,
Yeah.
okay?
Yes, I
Like where
like
there's
that.
committees and there's activation within the committees. So I do think as a board member, you do sign on to do a little bit of work, not administrative though.
Right.
Like
Right.
you've got
Not
staff to do
operation,
administrative,
yeah.
like you've got
Operation.
staff
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
the agendas and to keep the committee on track and to, you know, just to keep deadlines and
Yeah.
accountability. But, you know, you do create committees and you do have a couple people that sit, and that's why I suggested shifting every other month with committee meeting to board meeting,
Mhm.
Yeah.
or, you know, lessening the board meetings to allow for more committee meetings. And
Right.
that way, it's not asking for that much more time
Right.
because you're cutting back on your board meetings.
Mhm.
But in that committee meeting, you know, if it's a development meeting, I mean, you're sitting down, who do you know, who do you know, who do you know? Maybe the board helps with some of the stewardship. Maybe the board
Yeah.
helps with, I'll take this person or I'll take this person, and they
Right.
help cultivating the relationships. I do think you can activate your board a little more to get a little more work in, but staff is administrative. And no
Right.
board member wants to take notes.
And
No.
is
No.
your-
And agendas,
Yeah,
that's
that's
not their
operational,
responsibility.
right.
But in their skill set, they'll jump in there, and I think they will do. Like your builder, your construction person, he's like, I'll jump in
Yeah,
there
I
and
mean,
I'll
that's
give.
giving right there.
That's
Big
giving.
time.
That
Big.
is- yeah.
Absolutely.
Big. I mean, your time
What
today,
he
your
does-
time today,
Well,
yeah.
no, what he did with our bylaws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
and just, you know, I mean, it's, I mean, hours and hours
Absolutely.
donated time, you know, that
Every
was.
legal thing, that has been
Yeah.
a champion.
Yeah.
for
So, but our
members.
problem, and I read, and I get it, I understand it, so I'm not arguing with it, is
Yeah.
turnover.
Yeah.
But we've got the same core group of people to do all the stuff.
That's right, that's right.
And that's pretty
And
consistent.
so if we, just say Jessica and I and Thad said, you know, we're gonna be out next year. It'd be, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying because Sam, or I'm just saying this, I watch the people that put in the time and the effort, myself, Jessica, your brother, and Thad.
Yeah.
And,
Do
you
we
know,
wanna
now to a
shift
certain
that?
extent, you know, Jackie has stepped, you know, with
Yeah,
that.
the board is its whole own section, right?
Yeah, yeah, well,
Like, we
I know,
gotta
we're-
skip.
Shall we jump in?
No, I'm just saying that's
No, no,
a,
no, and you're right. And you've got to put people in positions to be successful,
Yes.
right? You can't, like, I've seen boards, like, I'll give you an example. One client, FFA Kentucky had such a dysfunctional board. Every meeting was like, are we gonna have the red tractor this year, or should we stay with the green tractor? You know, killing people. They want to shoot themselves. You all need, you guys are smart, intelligent, high-functioning human beings.
Yeah.
You need to be used in high-level ways to help the
Right.
organization
Yes. Right.
and activated in strategic ways
Yes.
that make sure that use the best of your talents and then let you get on with your life. You know what I mean? Because that way you'll be willing to give more than saying, oh my God, I can't go to another meeting where we keep talking in circles or this happens or this happens. Getting you all stressed into a committee structure, I think, is gonna help that.
And being really intentional about when you're meeting. Like, there was a lot of feedback on not meeting at night.
Yes.
and we have asked.
We've asked so many
I mean,
times.
literally,
I
I
heard that on repeat.
did, you
like-
It's
know,
crazy.
I'm
What would they
not-
tell us?
we polled, we sent a poll.
Yes.
Like
We
they
did
didn't
survey.
like it or they did like it?
They didn't.
They did not. Like, I'm a professional, like, I wanna be, like,
At home,
How
at night
many
with my,
surveys
yeah.
have we sent?
Oh,
wanna be
so-
off.
And I said at the last meeting, please tell us when we're gonna come around where you want us to be, because we wanna have the most
We'll have
membership.
lunch with you, like, just.
Yeah.
get
We had
there.
one at noon, and the
people
same
say
person that
things,
wanted it at
people
noon
say
didn't
things
show
to
up.
consultants that they
I know.
won't. That's why
Hard.
consultants are helpful,
Sure.
because they're like, well, I'll tell you.
They'll tell
Yeah.
you, yeah.
Yeah, I heard like I want to be able, whether it's Teams or in person, but I want to be able to eat lunch and like do a meeting. So I heard multiple people lunchtime work day.
I love
Sure.
that.
Oh,
Actually, I
I'm all
prefer
for it.
I
that.
would
Like,
imagine everybody,
yeah.
because also the person that you want around your board table is somebody that can leave in the middle of the day. I mean, you don't
Right.
want the person that can't leave
That
their
can't
office.
leave,
I mean,
right.
that's not the right person
Right.
to be.
By
on
the way,
board.
we'll come to your next board meeting and
Okay.
present this
I
in
gotta
PowerPoint.
present
Oh,
this.
great.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Okay, in PowerPoint.
Okay.
All right, so we'll come.
Committee.
make that presentation. And so part of what you do with our report is essentially, and we didn't say this, but this is a draft report, right? So you guys can give us response and say, too many words, Cobb, not clear enough on this. We hear that, and we can make adjustments as we prepare to come in and talk to the board, so that we give a concise, clear, and good presentation that everyone can hear at lunch or whatever.
I was saying, maybe you shift the daytime,
That's right.
lunchtime then.
But so we're able to answer questions and talk and stage this out, so it's not you telling them what we said, it's us telling them directly, okay?
Are you skipping ahead or what are we?
Well, I think
what page
we're
are we
gonna
on?
open up to the board and
Okay.
governance, so
Yeah, what page is that?
that's on page 26.
Okay.
And this is almost like, this is a very common
Yeah.
area of a report that we give to a lot of small nonprofits. It just is, okay? They're just not, like you said, I've been trying to fix this thing, we have all you guys coming in, so just, why don't you walk through this one?
Sure.
Yeah.
There were some open positions, make sure you get those filled. So some industry standard best practices. So I put in there the give or get model and board expectations. I would recommend doing both. I understand there is a draft of that,
There is.
but the feedback was it's not necessarily followed.
No.
So you gotta follow it.
Right.
It's like, if you tell your child that you're gonna, take something away, you gotta take it away.
So right there, what is your recommendation on ensuring that, like, what does that look like? Is that a phone call from Kelly? Is that a phone call from
I
Sam?
have,
Like,
as
what?
a former director, I have asked people to step off the board many of times.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I think everybody's relieved. Because if you've got somebody sitting at a seat or taking up a seat and they're not interested,
Right.
most likely
Give
they
them
feel guilty too. And maybe it's they can't make Tuesdays at 6 p.m.
Right. Which we had that. We have
100%. Like I was a board member for a group that I loved, and I was for Sacred Heart. I'm an alumni, and I loved being on their board.
Yeah.
But they met Tuesdays at 6. Which I came up with that. I couldn't get my husband home in order to be there.
Right.
They never sent out minutes. Therefore, I was like the worst board member. I had guilt about it. I got like Nanette Mershon like calling me. I'm like, I have to step off.
Yeah.
But things like that just happened. So it had nothing to do with your intent or like your
Right.
desire to help. Like sometimes logistics are just the
Doesn't
thing.
work. Yeah.
There's fatigue. So I'm like, rotate your board members. That's not necessarily happening on your own board.
Mm-mm.
You gotta
can't.
do,
Is that,
Well, that's what I said earlier,
no, you have to.
what I'm saying is, right
Yeah,
now,
current.
We don't have a quorum, right?
Where do we
Yeah,
find
whatever,
board
yeah.
members?
Okay.
So is
Well,
that a call from me, a call from Sam?
so, okay. So,
The best practice for me, if I'm doing it, like, if she's like, kind of hard charging, as you might be able to tell. Like, she could do that. If me, that's a
We're
peer-to-peer
the same.
conversation.
Yeah,
That's a
I get
board
it, I
member to
get
board
you.
member. The board members are your bosses. That's like telling your
Right.
boss, you need to resign. It's like, don't do that,
Right.
right? Although,
but I've also had board members, I have had board members say, I want a report card at the end of the year with these metrics, and I want you to tell me, because if I'm not meeting them, I don't want to take the seat. So I
Who do we find that does that?
I created, as one time as a director, I had my percentages.
No, I mean the person that wants to have the report card. I need to
They
find those
ask for it.
people.
Ask your board.
Yeah.
Ask them. Tell them after we present,
Mhm.
ask them. I never would have thought to do that. That's not my personality type at all. And I was like, oh, this feels weird, but I did
So
it.
I think there's some things in here that's gonna help with that conversation. How do I find these board members? What I do here, right? Because,
Yeah.
but
We
let's,
got
But back
We should
to
listen
that,
now.
you
You guys
go
talk.
board
Yeah.
member to
Yeah.
board member. So
I do,
like
I
Sam
do.
just,
I do.
Jack, somebody picks up the phone and says, hey, just
Oh,
checking
you need
in.
a recruitment, yeah.
No, I mean,
No.
like when you're checking in for somebody who's checked out and you really just wanna go.
Well, I think you can have an initial conversation with them,
them.
but if it comes to like, dude, you're not getting your job done, I would prefer it to be a
Not a
board member
board
to board member.
Either way.
I just do, because it's,
I think you're right about that.
you're coaching, trying to coach it up,
Yeah, either
you
way.
know?
Sure, cause
And
they're
it-
supposed to be,
They're your
Over
boss,
me.
they are your boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, you report to them.
Well, and I think this
So I
is where,
can't
like,
go
as the
on
staff, you track all of it, and whether you have the board member have the conversation or not, you're still the one activating that conversation. And I think that's what, so yes, in the past, I've not
Yes.
necessarily been the one to make that call, but I'm tracking it, I'm doing all the
Right.
things.
You're saying,
And I'm passing it to the board chair saying, I need you to have this
Okay.
conversation with
Yeah.
others.
that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that.
So
That
she's
makes sense.
initiating.
So I'm
You're
saying,
doing
hey,
all that
here's
behind,
what's
yeah,
happening.
so that's like
Can
where
you make the
Sam's
call?
point, you're tracking all of it, you're not having him do it.
No,
But
but
if
he's
you need
making
to call
the
in
initial
Sam,
call.
if you give him what he needs, he'll make the call, we'll have the coffee,
Got
he'll
it.
do whatever it needs to take. I mean,
Yeah.
usually that's
That's the dynamic.
Yeah, and if you establish these best practices and give or get examples, it's really easy to go back and look, we asked you to make 75% of the meetings, you've made, 15%, whatever the 25%.
Right.
If you're doing 4 a year, 25%. Like, we really need you to show up, or like, I mean, it's a little different if you're meeting with somebody like on the side, one-on-one, and they're really being helpful, but they can't make the meetings, like, you can have discretion.
I was gonna say,
Right.
that's a different
Different. There's-
flexibility
there's
maybe around that.
flexibility.
Everybody on the same page and in agreement, that
Yeah.
it's okay.
Which is often why you have committee structure as well, and that person normally could attend the committee, right, because they can maybe build it around their schedule, and maybe they're working in that way.
Yeah.
But I think if you can track those things, it just helps you understand, did somebody donate that year to a
Right.
personal gift? And if they can't donate, they're most likely not gonna help you in a development standpoint.
Right.
Are they showing up? Are they responding to you?
Right.
And if you see my examples, they're really simple.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like, you're like, did they show up to an event?
Right.
Did they come to your meetings?
Yeah,
And did they donate? Like, that's pretty much what you're
Did they
measuring.
donate?
So when I say like looking at like performance, it's pretty simple stuff. Yeah.
Basic expectations.
It really is. And you can shift those whatever you think is right for you and your board. I just try to give you examples. That's why I was like emailing you that one day of like, because like maybe you don't need everybody to go to a golf outing.
Yeah.
Right.
You choose.
You
I would
choose.
say I would choose the most important things for
Yes.
you. Showing up to meetings probably is going to be critical. It sounds like it's going to be, it's the biggest issue. Making a gift to the organization is a kind of a minimum expectation. But I think for you all, and how do you kind of go at this whole governance thing? And I think I would sit back and say, okay, I want to. It adds a little layer of complication to how you operate, but dividing and conquering on these issues gets to kind of how you want to set the board up in terms of those committee structure, right? You get those committees focused on their area. One, they're just, the recommendation is only to have 3. There's an executive committee that basically monitors you as the executive director, looks at the finances, makes sure bills are getting paid, et cetera. There's a fundraising committee that focuses on fundraising, right? How are we gonna expand it? Then there's one, then the other one is
Governance.
the governance committee, which is basically recruiting human beings to sit on.
And your lawyer, usually.
Yeah.
Making sure you're standing to the bylaws and things
Those
like
are
that.
the 3, those are the 2 big challenges, is getting good people to sit in these seats and getting people to feel like they can make gifts to the organization.
being the right people.
Yeah.
Good people are good people, but
Yeah.
they're not the right people,
And it takes courage to ask somebody to step off the board if they've been on the board
Yeah.
for a long time. I've been in your shoes. It takes a lot of courage, but it's important.
especially with the
Right.
personal connections, I'm sure,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and what you can do is ask people to take a year off, and if they're still engaged and want to come back on, then they can come back the next year. So I always like 3 or
3 on, 1
no
on.
6 years. So 2 terms, 3 years.
2, 3.
Okay.
With
3-year
that-
terms, and it's up to
Okay.
your accordance to your bylaws, but you can make that edit if it's different. But I always like 2 3-year terms consecutive. Take a break.
Oh,
And if that way you got 6 years out of somebody, if they want to stay that long, and if it's an agreeable relationship, and then if they take a year off and come back, but it helps because you want to develop community champions everywhere.
yeah.
So like, say you have somebody at Brown Foreman on your board. I mean, like, you don't, if they left the next day and then you don't have somebody else in the queue that knows, Camber was not being talked about by anybody else other than that one person, like, that doesn't do you a service.
Right.
So it takes a
Right.
lot of courage to ask somebody to step down, but they understand. And anybody that's been on a board gets it. Like, it's healthy for the board, and they can come back or they can stay on a committee. They really want to stay engaged in the work.
Yeah.
You don't have to have only board members in a committee.
That's a good point.
So I can say this here with you all. I'm not gonna divulge any confidences on this deal, but you have some really quality people on your board
You do.
that that get a little nervous sometimes because they look at some of the other board members and they wonder if they're doing what they need to do. Okay, and so that doesn't just affect you guys, but it affects the entire board.
Give me an example, trying to.
People not showing up, people not making gifts to the organization. There's just concerns about is this group of folks that I've sort of attached myself to and are happy to want to donate my time. Is this really a best practice operation, or is this kind of like we heard some of that, and I just want to share with you that
Okay.
that's not uncommon, but you know, your people that are kind of like, these are people we really want on the board. You need to start, if they're not modeling that behavior, then you need to think about that. They should be. But I just think that just kind of know that some of that's there. It's not huge, but you just need to be aware of it, all right? Make sure you're.
Also, when you're a newer board member and you come onto a board with a lot of family relationships or seasoned relationships, it's also very intimidating. And we heard that too. So that felt a little uneven for people. And I'm just being completely candid. So that's another reason why rotating board members is really important. And people can still stay involved in work and you can shift what that looks like, but you want your board to sit there as equals. And that didn't come across in our interviews with board members. It's very much a culture thing. So a part of that is rotation. A part of that is having your governance committee. So you're getting people outside of close connections, right? So you're getting a group of individuals and they're getting their contacts and now you're broadening your base. So you want to make sure that it's kind of an equal space.
Is there, I can't remember, and you might be getting to this, but is there board recruitment suggestion in here as far as the process to identify, recruit, bring in, like the onboarding process? I mean, I feel like we don't have that right now.
I
Is
did
that
not
true?
go-
Would you say that?
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
not go
Okay.
into an onboarding process. I am happy to work with you on something like that, like
Yeah.
post for that. I love doing like an annual retreat with board members. It doesn't have to be like an all day thing. It can be a couple hours, bring people together for lunch and
Yeah.
talk about goals and
Amazing.
talk about committee goals. I mean, I could give you a template of a retreat that I style that I love.
Love retreats.
It's just like the way that I've always liked to do a retreat is like, here's some of our high marks for the year. Here's where we were like really successful. Here's maybe some areas of weakness,
Yeah.
areas for growth.
Yeah.
And then here's my 3 committees. I want to activate you 3, you know, and have them have a working session, come up with some goals that they want to come to meet it by the end of the year as well.
Yeah, sure.
Something along those lines, and
Yeah.
I can help you with that. But no, I did not go into super specifics about how you onboard, but having some type of process, one-on-one meetings,
Right.
It's relationship
and then
building
also
too,
It
right?
is.
bringing as many
Yeah.
people at the same time of the year helps as well.
Okay.
So then like you could do some type of retreat and you've got your 3 new people and then you've got all your seasoned people
That
and
makes
everybody can
sense.
meet each other and it can be, you can do like an icebreaker. I mean, those things are kind of cheesy, but like,
Yeah.
it gets people laughing. I mean, you can get people to meet in an informal way, create some laughter, create some connection, and then get some work done too.
Right.
And that's kind of a nice like reset. Also, like if you're bringing somebody new, making sure like as you move forward, maybe it's a one-on-one meeting of like the plans that you're doing, just that way they feel like they're looped in and you don't have to have the board repeat all the things.
Right.
So that's something to be sensitive about as well. But there is a board skills matrix in here that can help with recruitment as far as, you know, do you
Do we have
have,
what we need on the board? You know, and so,
and that's the main.
It's like just because somebody, you know, knocks on the door and like, oh, I wanna be on your board, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good fit.
no,
Right.
no, no,
You
no.
should-
It doesn't
Vetting.
have to be an
They
automatic
should be
yes.
sending a resume.
Right.
They should go to your governance committee, they should be holding that, they should allow, 6 months of the year, they should be looking through that and then hopefully get your 3 or 4 new people at the same time, and that makes your life a lot easier too.
Right.
If you've got people shifting in and out, it's really hard to do an
Hard to
onboarding
keep
process,
up,
you can't keep
yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So it's okay to have an empty seat, you know, for a couple, in my opinion,
Right.
for a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
months, to be able to have peace of
Feel
mind
right.
and a good onboarding process with your people. So don't, when I say recruit everybody fully, don't, if somebody steps away, I don't remember what your timeline is, I don't remember if it's calendar or fiscal.
It's no, October, isn't it?
November.
Or November.
Okay, somebody steps away in July, like, it's okay. You know, you can pause, figure out who the right person is and get them on for your November timeline.
Right now, we have 15 positions, and we were actually meeting with the board member a few weeks ago who said, maybe we need 20. What's your recommendation
No.
there? That feels like a lot of
No,
people.
No,
Feels like
15 of
We
the
can
right
barely
people is what we
manage
want.
15.
15's
Yeah.
most of it,
Okay.
though.
Okay, good,
Okay,
good, good.
that
That,
You
makes
get,
sense.
then you get into really people checking out at that point.
Yeah.
Sure.
yeah.
This is my
You want
gut.
engaged, active 15.
15.
You want to
okay.
have 3
That- again,
committees,
they're right.
I think 12 is
Right.
the right number, just in my mind, but
Oh, okay.
12 to 15.
You like 12?
Yeah.
Yeah.
12's great. Yeah,
Okay,
anywhere from
sorry,
10 to 15.
that was just
Those
a
are
Um,
random.
So,
That's the main board
So as
stuff,
you think
okay?
about, this, I'm just trying to help y'all through this. Step back. You as a staff got to get yourself wrapped around this fund development to-do list, right? You also need to share some of the initial sort of work that can happen at the board level, and all that doesn't have to happen like next week, okay? It just needs to happen over the arc of a period of 12 months or so, okay? So you start putting in little changes here or there. The biggest thing for you is to concentrate and focus on fund development, because you're gonna need to raise money in substantial ways in 2 to 3 years. You can do that. You will be able to do that. I mean, you can raise $500,000 is not chump change. I mean,
That's a lot of
that is,
Yeah.
that is a real possibility for you, as we
there.
wrote in the report. You could do that this year, okay? But you have to do it tactfully and carefully through engagement, conversations, and, you know, making sure you're ready before you don't want to ready, fire, aim.
Not fly by the seat of our
Right,
pants.
you want to go in with the
Yeah.
plan, and that's, but I'm saying that, that was the thing that surprised us, is that you have some capacity now.
Mm.
And the thought is to activate it early, and then go back in 2 to 3 years and activate greater philanthropy then.
Yeah, it makes
to
perfect
get
sense.
some
The
additional, but
growth.
we can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Well, I would just make, if you all, when you come to our board meeting, if you would just have these other services that you all think
Yeah.
you could help us with,
Okay.
like this development, like these,
Yeah.
these things, said, all right, if you want it, we're here, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
offer
Just kind of
this.
a menu, cause then that.
Yeah,
Because
we
I-
need to,
I
we need to
don't
know
know.
what is
Okay,
it?
Would you want us to follow up post board meeting with like, you want it?
Are you talking about you want the board
You
to
want the
be
board to be able
aware,
to
or
talk
just
about it right then and
leadership,
there?
or?
Well, either leadership, just so we know,
Okay.
even if it's just the leadership group, that we have.
yeah. So but one is, so the 3 sort of things to see: database help,
Yes.
help kind of getting, and that's not a big lift. We could help just off and on, help you kind of get this major gift effort sort of up and activated, and just coach you through it.
Yes.
Mhm.
That's kind of like, here's what you do, here's how you do it, and this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that potential interim staffing or short-term staffing, that somebody could come in that would help do that. So those are the 3 that I have so far. And I can mention
What'd you
those.
say? The database, interim
Da-
staffing,
And,
what was your
and
second
major
one?
gifts, or it's like campaign consulting through. a
Well, that's
major
what I was
gift.
gonna say, like,
Yeah, it's just like
Kinda
hourly
campaign
is
council.
needed,
Yeah.
I'll give you 30 minutes and we'll chat through this. And I'll give you to-dos and I'll hold your hand, and then we'll come back.
To me, I
and
feel
meet.
like
Sure.
there
Yeah.
is a distinction between hourly is needed and counsel, where like, to me, like if I'm counsel for somebody, I'm kind of checking in with them more routinely.
Yeah.
We're like, as needed
More
is,
as
hey,
needed.
give me a call if you need me.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm not really gonna check in,
Yeah.
because I'm not.
Well, we might even not know if we need you.
Well, so
that's,
to me, there's
that's
a
the
little bit
benefit
of
of
difference
council.
there of
Yeah.
what
No,
has.
and
so
that's
I
sort of
think
like
Yeah.
case by case. We'll have
Yeah.
we'll have a check in like every other week, or what? I mean, whatever. I'm just making this up top of my head, or every week, whatever. It's like, how's it going? You can send an email, read the email,
Yeah.
respond to the email, or get on a phone call, or come make a personal visit. It's just kind of level of sort of need is what we tailor ourselves to, and we do this all the time with people. I mean, it's not like, this whole thing about communication and grief awareness really kind of surprised us a little bit.
Yeah.
And it had to be, I'm sure it kind of took you a little bit like, oh my goodness, So I think that,
Okay, where's that at?
That's on page 34.
34.
and I think that while you all are a really best kept secret, I think there's a lot of education that's gonna need to happen with people about why working through this is important. Because there's some people that even we talked to, they were like, I don't know, they're kind of,
We know.
I know, yeah.
We've
Yeah.
had people
They-
say that.
you know,
like,
that they were-
I don't
What are you talking
grieve.
about?
I'm like,
they will
yes,
fight
you
their
do.
way through
I
this,
mean,
and they
it's
don't want to admit it.
unbelievable.
It is crazy.
Yeah, and we're just like, whoa. We're like,
People are really
Kid
kind of put
knows-
off by
knows
the
to
idea
knows
that
to.
we have to
So-
talk about grief.
But to
So-
say, what do you want to unpack there? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, what do you have a wall up around?
Yeah,
But no,
like,
I mean,
It's
sorry, this is
I was
not
really
a
surprised.
huge big deal. It's not something you need to take on this year. But I think you need to be aware that how you talk about, how you communicate, how you kind of work on that is something that is going to be, when you look at your social media, your Instagram is 214, you got 1,300 people in your quote, your second database, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I think messaging early and often about the importance of to what end,
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, to what end?
I think my strategy to this point, that we've kind of agreed upon has been, we're cultivating community and relationships. We're educating grievers and people who are coming alongside grievers, how to support grievers, what is grief, we're trying to do that, but then also, and then just basic, information. Here's our events. Here's how you
And the
get
most
involved.
important thing I can say to you is that you want to have communication to everyone is like opening your front door and expecting to heat the east end of Louisville, right?
Right.
You're gonna be expending tons of energy and not gonna move the needle on raising the temperature in
Right.
Hurstbourne by
Right.
1 degree. So you need to target
Yeah.
who that is for
Who you're
you.
talking.
And for me, if I'm in your seats, it's people with affinity and capacity to make
Right.
gifts to your
Sure.
agency. That's my
Makes
target
sense.
audience, okay?
Yeah.
Key community leaders and decision makers that can maybe
Yeah, that's-
be board members, can maybe influence you.
Okay.
Those are kind of things. Everyone is
My
not a
avatar.
target audience, right?
Yeah.
But and I'm not going to tell you
Yeah.
who your target audience is, but that's where I would tend to start shifting my focus.
Meets the greatest need right,
Right,
now.
right.
Anyhow,
Right.
Yeah.
And the last thing is this. It seems like blocking and tackling, but I think this whole concept of really starting to track early and on impact of your work, people served, people, that
Yeah.
whole is going to be.
Is
very-
there a system you have that you recommend for something like
It-
that, or is it built into this green light thing, or
No,
an Excel
it's-
spreadsheet? What?
Well,
That's
you
what
know,
we do right now.
I think you kind of sit
Yeah.
back. I think you kind of sit back as a group and say, okay, what are the ways that we interact with people that we can measure,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
What are the ways that people?
What's
What are the measurements that show the impact of our work? Is it number of people that come visit? Is it the number of grievers touched? Is it number of people in a program? Volunteers, just having different metrics, and this is not a this year kind of thing, but it's something that you need to have in the back of your mind that when you grow and get more sophisticated, you're going to be doing grant work, you're going to be doing presentations, and you're going to want to be able to show impact. And in the beginning, it's not going to look that great, right? So, but it's important that you start getting that built into your culture because you're going to be asked that a lot of times with a lot of grant makers, especially.
All of them, they're to ask some type of baseline data and metrics
Yeah.
against it.
Right.
And you can report to your board annually about that data, and you can determine growth from that, and that's just kind of how you start. You can perfect it as you roll, but
Okay. Thank you.
there's also consideration of a peer review committee for support.
Yeah, tell me about that.
And that's a way to pull in folks to sort of try out being on the board, or at least being, and that's another way to funnel additional individuals to your, so Mark's not the only one being a feeder.
Yeah, we just
Oh.
heard a lot too that Mark kind of fed a lot of the clients, and in fact the other way as well. And so I think I do think that the perception of conflict of conflict of interest is there. It could be
Could
be there.
Yeah.
I don't think it is there, but I think
It
it
is
could
for
be
us.
there.
Yeah.
Well,
It's just
okay.
been a tricky-
And
It
then
is a
so you want
tricky
to
thing.
kind of mitigate that by opening that up, and then there you
More
go.
professionals
More
there.
people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It could offer more services, it can offer more perspective, it can offer more programming like at the sanctuary. And it does eliminate conflict of interest if anybody perceives it that way. So I think it would be a very healthy thing for all of the above.
One thing we had looked at, and Kelly and I have talked about it quite a bit, we met with hospice.
Yeah.
And, had a good meeting with them. I felt like when we walked out, they were, I don't know how you all felt, but then they kind of just,
They disappeared.
they disappeared on us
Yeah.
because we were gonna, one of the things they were gonna have, we were gonna charge them just to clean up, be like $75.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
much, just to.
And they were like, well, I don't think that we can do that.
It's not
And
They
we
said
have-
they didn't have a budget for it.
What was the,
They wanted to bring us like a retreat day for their team to come out and spend the whole day and have programming.
oh, I
and-
mean, that's, come on,
But,
Always we
Yeah.
said,
But-
Right.
all it is
That's
is
fair.
a cleaning
Yeah.
fee.
that's fair.
But everything else you guys make sure.
but that's
That's
not
fair.
that wasn't my point. My point was,
Yeah.
is did similar things. They're good fundraisers. They've got this, we don't want to lose our, autonomy here that we have. But is that, so, I don't know. It's just something that's kind of been on my,
Yeah, what do you
How do
do?
we
Do you
pursue-
follow back with them?
Yeah, I'd say
Do
let's,
you-
let's,
what
let's
do you
get a
do?
partnership. And just,
Honestly, if $75 really made or break it, I would probably eat the $75
Sure.
and bring them on.
Just get 'em out
Right,
there,
but
see-
see, they didn't even respond
get a
back
donor-
to say,
you fundraise around the program,
Yeah.
you know?
It
Go
just
to,
was
a,
that
go to
long.
a local, small local foundation that I think you've got the foundation unless you've kind of been working through some of that. And say, hey, we want to,
Host
I don't know,
this?
whatever it is. You
Yeah,
just think
yeah.
creatively about
Right.
that.
Okay.
I do think partnerships in general are going to help you guys
Mhm.
A lot.
as like in the communications part. I mean,
Yeah.
even some of the donors didn't really have a clear understanding of certain, so I mean, in that communications vein, I do think partnerships to enhance who knows about your services and what you have to offer is going to be helpful. We did come up with an idea. You may love it, you may dislike it. It's just an idea. I think it would be really helpful. But we'd have to explore it if you guys were interested. The idea was, there was a group, it's Sisters of Nazareth, it says, I have it written down on my phone. So Jeff Ashley has a good relationship with them, and his idea was they are always looking for space to hold events or gathering opportunities. And what about like a concrete partnership where because they have a lot of money. And they're always looking to give money. So they were like, what about, going in it with some type of like, maybe $500,000 type of gift, but for a shared space. And it would be like, there's a consistency for shared space. Like they would have it. And I was like, wait a minute, most of your programming is over the weekend, right?
right.
And I don't know if that's gonna change in the long-term future, but it seemed to me like maybe they could come a couple days a week with that large gift. It would be a shared, but it would look like,
Yeah.
but if you did something like that and did your 500,
At least we
You're
thought
coming to
it
your 500.
worthwhable conversation.
It's
to
worthwhile
sort of
conversation.
have
Definitely
and,
worth the conversation.
I do
Yeah.
think that there would be some ownership that they would want, and that was my only I don't know how you guys would feel about that, and I don't know what that looks like. We'd have to meet
Yeah,
together
I
and
think
understand.
But it's worth the conversation.
But if they were gonna invest that much, they would want.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right.
But yeah, so that was something that I think we can, if it's all right, we'll wait till after the board meeting. We can go ahead and maybe make an introduction and see if we can get that.
I don't think it even hurts to have an introduction between
Okay.
Kelly now,
I don't
Okay.
you
think you
know.
have to wait.
Okay.
And it's just an
What do you
idea,
feel?
right? It was one of those, like, we were brainstorming and it came up. He hasn't talked to them about it. I was like, let me just ask them first and we'll figure
Sure.
out. So
Yeah.
it's an idea.
I think it's worth the
I love that.
conversation.
I will get something
And
scheduled.
they may not, I mean,
Right.
they just may make a donation and not even do anything. So who knows?
Which would be cool
what
too.
happens. Yeah.
So it would be a worthwhile meeting because they would have
Yeah.
capacity.
And I think it's sharing and,
Sure. I think that's about brilliant.
It's mutually beneficial.
Oh, I think so.
situation.
Yeah, I mean,
So, as we think about presenting to the board, I think what I'm hearing is you say, you guys really want this, I gotta make this much more high level and sort of bam, bam, bam on some areas, but also drill down in some areas where we can be some assistance in kind of helping shepherd some of this along in a strategic way. Any other thoughts as we sort of think about that?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking, let me ask you this question. So let's fast forward. Now we're 2.5 years past today.
Okay.
And you look at our donor data. Do you see us as more donations from individuals, more donations as a result of grant writing? Where do you see us in that 2.5 to 3.5? Because I'm trying to figure out how all this kind of gets to where we want to get, not 6 months from now, but like 3 years
Exactly.
from now. Is it an individual thing? Because I'm hearing a lot of that. Is it that first and then beyond, or
So here's how I think about this.
because
Okay.
that to me is like the 50,000 foot view that the
Right.
board might want to hear about.
So I think the plan would be to try to get early wins right now with grant funding. Okay? And grant funding is going to be on a cycle, right? Because foundations have openings and when they accept applications and then they have closings where they don't. So you've got to line up. And some of them, like the James Grant Brown Foundation, they do one a year for areas that are emphasis of kind of places you are in. Okay, and some of those, you have to get a no first before you get a yes.
Yep.
Often.
Okay, often.
Yeah.
Like, so I see that as being some potential early wins, but also a play that will get you set up for 2 to 3 years of being, you're gonna raise awareness, they're gonna know who you are, they're gonna have met with you, and they're gonna be prepared to say, okay, I have a relationship established, I'm willing to do that. At the same time, you need to start pulling your database together, pulling people in and start moving people up. Okay, so think about it now. You guys have very limited capacity at the moment, and you haven't really been, you've just been doing what you needed to do, right? So what I'm convinced is that if you do targeted work on foundations, and that's something you guys outsource to, us or whatever, it's fine, that's another thing. But you focus on people, because 80% of philanthropy, 80% of the pie is individuals, okay? 10% is corporations and 10% is foundations, right? So if you're only going after foundations, you're fishing in 10% of the pond, right? So you got to, for sustainability, you got to build awareness, and that individual connections with the right people, that you're going to cultivate, they can bring along their corporations, they can bring along peers. And so that's the way I see you you're basically just trying to lift the boats up right now,
Yeah.
so you can go sailing in 3 years is what I'm thinking.
The other thing too, and just to kind of, a lot of foundations want a program attached to the gift as well, which is good, but then there's operations for making sure you're executing, where individual donors generally will give an unrestricted gift.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what we
Right,
want.
yeah.
So like, yes, you wanna build programming, but you wanna build your things, and
Yeah.
like it would, ideally, you're doing more individual gifts, getting some of the foundation down.
Yeah.
Then you're building, and then you're building programs, and then you'll be able to access more foundations and things like that. So just something, kind of food for thought.
Makes sense.
Capital's hard to come by, just a capital gift from a
It is
foundation. It's very,
operating capital.
well, operating is almost impossible to
That's
come by from a
impossible,
foundation.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
almost
it doesn't
impossible.
happen. It really doesn't.
Yeah, they're usually okay with like a 10% or 15% kind of administrative overhead, 20, anywhere from 10 to 20. But other than that, you have to have, it's usually not enough.
Are we doing everything, using your all services with the grant writing now to our fullest extent?
I know we
As needed, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I know we kind of forward it on to you right now, but you can get into more regular, and that's sort of like, here, take a look at this, see what you think about it. I don't think you've had a regular connectivity with
No.
sort of one. We sort of front loaded that to give that to you early so you can
Right.
start looking at it.
That would be,
And that's something you could do. Yeah, I mean, they could stay on, you could, have a regular monthly, check-in call with them, get in a regular rhythm with them, where you have a grant writer that you're assigned to, and they could say, I found,
yeah.
these 3 are coming up, let's get you in the hopper.
That's what, yeah.
And you may just need some help.
But
with
again,
that.
that's
fine.
when
Okay, yep.
going back to this mini thing, I'm still like, okay, well, y'all just kind of keep what you do secret sometimes.
Okay. I think it's partly,
No, I don't think you do it. I think you do it because you don't want to be a sales job.
That's right.
And I get it. I'm just saying this, but every time
Okay.
I'm around you or you when we talk, well, we got this, we can do. I'm like, whoa, we can do that too.
Okay.
So
I'll take that. I think.
And I get why you're doing it, because then it's like, who's doing what? Well, I could sit here and tell you need all this stuff, but you don't.
I think
So-
I've been sensitive to the fact that the first time I met with you guys, this is a really big decision, right? And this is a lot of money for your organization, all right? And I want to be as helpful and thoughtful as I could with that, right? And I also didn't want to just like, I don't want to come across as being a shyster. So now that I've established myself as not a shyster, I'll say that.
That's why you bring her.
That's
right?
how I bring her. So I'll sell it, but I'll say also that's probably why this is a 70-page report too,
Not
right?
fair.
Because I remember getting grilled at the meetings like, what if it's a no? What if it's a no? And I said, we'll get you a plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I wanted you to have a plan and more than you needed, because I didn't want just to come back like a lot of firms do and say, well, we didn't find it and you need to start doing some things and good luck. No, we want to give you a timeline, everything you need.
Well, I'm just speaking as one board member, not
Yeah.
to speak. We need that from you all.
Got it.
And
All right.
I think it's established that we trust you all
Yeah.
and we value your opinion.
All right.
So that's where we just
And thank you, and also truly, it is up to the organization to determine if they wanna handle that internally or work with
Well,
us. So I
we're
mean, part
just,
of
I
it is
mean,
having this
I'm
discussion.
not sure you could ask them to do any more right
Right,
now.
okay.
No, in terms of bringing somebody else on staff.
Correct. Whether we wanna do that or we do the,
Yeah.
as, you know, your people that can help and do
Right,
that,
right.
even if it's just getting the database
Right.
set up, you know, I
Right.
mean, that's
Right.
gonna take hours.
Right.
And so I think part of what you wanna do, I think when you come to the board is, because we just took on this major property
Yeah,
and our expenses just skyrocketed.
Our
And
budgets.
they, 30 days comes every 30 days, and when that 30 day comes, here comes we need another 12 grand that we
Yeah.
didn't need a year ago.
Yeah.
And so everybody's nervous about that, whether they want to admit it or not.
Yep.
I'll admit it.
They are, and some board members don't seem to be nervous about it. I'm nervous about
I
it.
think everybody's nervous
terrified.
about it.
I
So-
think they're afraid to say it
I
out
think they're afraid
loud.
to say
Yeah,
it.
so,
Yeah.
so to the point to that is,
Minutes
we
later.
can't just, and you just said it, we can't just look about what we're gonna do 3 years from now. We gotta look about, we do have
There's
to
an
look about
immediate
what we're
need.
gonna
There's
do in
holes in
6
the
months.
boat.
Right,
now.
yeah.
Immediate
And,
need.
and you know, and I think we all understand that you gotta spend it to make it sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, you
We
can't,
don't have it to
but
It feels like we don't have
Yeah.
it to spend.
we,
but
And
you
it's gonna
can't,
get, that's gonna get worse.
Right, the longer
The
we,
more,
we don't.
the longer we don't, the more
Yeah.
pressure there's gonna be, and
Yeah.
then it
Feels-
could feel, I just can feel,
Feels like an instant pot, like the timer, like this pressure cooker, and
You know what I mean?
there's a little bit
Yes.
of
I
steam
do,
coming out,
I'm
and-
just like processing, I'm trying, that's
Yeah.
strategy, like,
so I think, let us think about this offline.
yeah.
Come make the presentation, get a little more feedback, and then we can bring an outline of sort of menu of sort of how we think we can help you. You know, by saying it probably won't be, it could be her, but it also could be another
So you'd be
couple
stuck
folks.
with me.
Another couple.
You have to
No,
be
I'm
closer
just
to
saying.
me.
I'm just saying because what we're getting here now is this is not campaign sort of work.
sure,
Right.
we get that.
This is fund.
Yes,
This
it's
is
the
fund
difference.
development work,
Foundational
which
work,
gets
yeah.
which we have an entire quote division. We've got other consultants that
Right.
do this with nonprofits over time. So we may just bring in someone else to kind of hold your hand and be your accountability partner and all that stuff. But that's just let's just I've got the notes here on the kind of the 4 areas.
Yeah.
And so I can go back and just kind of lay that down and then, let's.
So we'll go over everything high level, we will end it, we will make sure we have that prepared so you guys
And
can
I'll
think
tell
about
them,
it.
and Thad can tell, we had to ask you all to present this. You're not coming in here for a sales job, we asked you to do this.
Yeah, it's all,
And then
yeah.
you guys choose, David, I don't know if you have an opinion on this, you guys choose whether you wanna send this PD off to your board in advance.
Here's my feeling.
we've sat on that for a minute.
Here, I say
I know.
don't. Let me
No.
just give them the high level deal, and if they want to read it, we'll send it to them afterwards.
Yep.
Cause you will find some people that want the detail.
Well,
So,
you're, but what
Our
you're,
leadership team has it.
Okay,
Right,
and what you're gonna have though, is you're gonna have people jump to conclusions, kinda like I did when I first read it a
Yeah.
little bit, then you read it again and you're like, okay, that makes sense. And then,
Yeah.
and it again, that's what I told Kelly, it's like somebody coming in your house, and saying, that color is just really not, it's kinda off, you need to change that, and so and when you're your baby,
yeah.
when it's hurt, so then it's
I
like,
laugh.
so.
Sometimes I have to do that. Sometimes I have
the
to say-
color of people's houses?
No, I just have to tell I won't.
It's not
Working.
These kind of conversations are the hardest for me because I want in my heart to come in and say, you can do it, but I know I can't. Right, and it hurts me.
I'm not surprised
No,
by
and it
that.
just hurts because
I'm not
I'm
surprised by that.
it doesn't
That's
it just
fine, that's
it's
good to
it's
hear.
just it's
We
my
do,
yeah.
no, we know.
Well, I mean, that's good.
Once
to
we
hear.
read-
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Well, really, everybody around the table has at heart the best thing for the organization. That's
Right.
why we're all sitting at this table, and so just keep that in front of you in all
Right.
of these conversations. It's not about me personally,
not.
not about it's about Camberwell as its own thriving,
Mm-hmm.
vibrant organization, bringing hope into the
Right.
community.
Yeah.
I'll be honest,
That's it.
it is, and I chewed on it, and I chewed on it, and I chewed on it, and if I had this enormous amount of funding, I would say everything that you can do, I want you to do, because we need all of it. We're not there right now, but I really just had to think for a minute, and there were things in it that didn't make sense, and anyway, I found myself on Friday night standing next to one of my really, really good friends whose son took his life on Monday.
Jesus.
And she clung to me like I was a life preserver because she wanted to know she could have a breath again in her lungs.
Mm.
And standing there that night, all the things that originally pissed me off about this, I'm gonna be honest, it's not about me. It's about that family right there going, please tell me I'm gonna survive this because I don't think I can.
Yeah.
And so it put it in perspective.
Yep.
I'm showing up because it's not about me. And you can like the color or not, but tell me how we're gonna sell this boat because these people need us.
They do.
And that's the end of it. Now, I don't know how we're gonna get there, and I don't know how I'm gonna pay my bill next month, if you wanna know the truth. But I'll do what I have to do to make that work.
You do have $500,000 with, I mean, we found it. Start, the donor list that you gave us, start cultivating those people,
We will.
okay?
Just open
There-
the door
there-
for me, I'll go,
There
I'll
are
go.
people ready to make gifts. I mean, people are like telling me like, oh, and how do I, nope, I'm not asking for anything.
Yeah.
They will follow up with you. So you do have potential there. You do need to get some of these things done, but you do have potential there. I mean, it's,
And that may give you some relief.
I think it should.
I think I think you need. I think.
Was it, could you tell us who those, do you identify those?
You can't do
That's
that.
where it's confidential. I mean, I don't know. Can I give them a list? Can we give them a list of?
I can give you a list of people.
People to call.
I think
Yeah.
To call first.
people I would
Yeah.
encourage you to reach out to.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
Yeah.
How about that? I'm not going to tell you any amounts or anything.
No, I don't want to know that.
Just tell her to start.
And
pound
with
up
the
the work.
relationship, you know, a couple of them were like, you know, if I understood some more detail, that gift would be more, which is why some of that cultivation.
Well, the reason I ask is who is because, okay, just say if it's somebody that I put on the list, then it makes sense for Kelly and I to go in.
Yeah.
If it makes sense
Right.
for somebody that
Yeah, I can
Jess put
prior-
on the list,
I can
then
prioritize your
that's
list.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
And
this
you
guy
know,
who's,
there's nothing better. And I appreciate you sharing all that.
Yeah, thank you.
And I
it's
get
just
it.
that mindset, I get it.
And I think that urgency, not panic, can be an ally, right?
Right.
And you got urgency around this. And I think you know, you take this as a once in a lifetime opportunity to get this property. It was. It's not going to come. I mean, if you didn't take it, somebody else was.
Right.
So you took it. You're taking a chance, but this whole thing is a chance, right? I mean, you started this thing on that. Yeah. So, you know,
Dollars.
when we come in and we have all these, you know, just know that we think this is a better report because you have capacity to do that
Yeah.
than it is you're not ready now. So I think if you can have some thoughtful conversations with people about where you are, what you're thinking about in terms of how you stage this early, to kind of pace some of this down, I'm hopeful you can get some relief on that, and I think that'll save you. You get that note to 6 a month instead of 12. That's a whole hell of a lot better, right?
Right.
What is it? $1 million now? Is that? Well, I don't know. You guys got that balloon that I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when should we'll work with Colleen
Okay.
to find out what's the best time for us to come meet with you. If you just kind of, when you have, we're going to a board meeting next, or when you want us to come in and make the presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our next board meeting's at the end of next month.
Yeah.
End of April? Okay, we can do that.
Wait, we're in
End of
February.
March.
Or
March.
No,
End
yeah,
of
I'm sorry,
March.
end of March.
Okay, yeah. I forget, it's still
We are
February.
March.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, the end
That's a
of
good
March.
time that'd be the time to do it. We don't wanna wait until the.
No,
No.
If you could just get us
now.
the date.
yeah.
That last, I can tell
It's the
you,
last Wednesday of the month.
last Wednesday in March.
Okay.
November 9th.
And is it the 6 o'clock?
And, you know, and as you come up with these things that your menu, you don't have to wait for that. You can send that to us, you know, our leadership
Okay.
team, and then, is that right, Kelly?
Right.
Yeah, and then that way we can look and
Well,
say,
yeah,
you know, the
we're
thing about it
talking
is,
about it.
or again,
March 27th.
you all are just like that. You got one thing to sell. That's your time.
Yeah.
And if you don't charge for your
6 o'clock.
time, you don't eat. So we get that.
27th at 6.
Sorry.
Okay.
We actually have it at 7, but we can, I mean, it's,
Do whatever time you want.
we'll do whatever we want.
Okay,
Well, you just let us know. I'll just,
I'm open, so.
okay. One of us, both of us will be there.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, when you think about roles and responsibilities, I think that's something that you guys can digest soon, right? And kind of create a clear line. I think you really need to lead the development work. And I don't know how you feel about that, but I think like your connection to everything and like the way that you speak about it, and if there's something to alleviate, to give to Valerie for you to be the main development person. I mean, until just, or the main, like on staff. And so I think that that's, and I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I'll do whatever I need to do.
That's
Okay.
that, you just the vocal face.
So
of
like,
it.
until anything changes, like you are the main development person, and I think like kind of having that part of the role, you like as, because I remember that was like one of the very first things I asked, and that wasn't a clear answer. So I think that should be a clear answer. That way you feel, and you can still support and do, I mean, more of the events and things like that, what you're doing. But I think from like the one-on-one relationships,
One-on-one funding.
the follow-up and deadlines and working with people for coffee or lunch and connecting with them one-on-one, like I think that should be you. And if that doesn't make sense, then we can work through it, but,
No, that's,
okay.
that makes sense.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. It's a lot to still chew on.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks,
coming.
Sam.
Thanks for all,
Thank you.
thanks for all
So
this
we have
work.
these 2 extra copies. It's like 150 pages of paper.
You're welcome. It's nice to meet Mark face to face.
Oh, yeah, I guess had you not done it before?
No. I've heard about it.
Oh dear.